Okay. Hello. Good morning. It's so early, isn't it? So, in your programs, it said that this was going to be a team talk on gender differences in social engineering about men and women. However, my male partner bailed a few days before the con. So, no, not that one, Will Tarkington. So, I just figured that proves why women are better than men. So, I will tell you that I had to restructure the talk during the conference, which meant sometime this morning. And so I'm going to do my best to give you guys a good talk. So just bear with me and work with me, and we're going to work together, okay? Get through it. Yeah? Yeah? Okay, let's do this. We're going to talk a little bit about social engineering and gender. Do women do it differently than men? Okay? And basically we're going to talk a little bit about how women communicate differently than men, about how women do nonverbal communication differently than men, women social engineer differently than men, what those differences are, and do they matter? Okay? There we go. Sex versus gender. There's a difference. Sex, you guys know, we're going to do a little biology lesson, is anatomical, biological, and physical. So there's a difference between men and women. We tend to have right now this big war, I think, between men and women. There's these extremes. We want men and women, some women want to be just equal all the time, but men and women are different. Biologically different, we just are. And instead of fighting about these extremes, and instead of fighting about why men and women are different, what we're going to talk about today is why these are good things. And talk about why we can embrace the differences between men and women, why we can work with these differences, and why these differences make us each uniquely suited to what we do in social engineering, what we do in life, what we do in everyday things. So, and here's just some things that we talk about. We're going to talk about some cliches, some things that we hear every day, and why those things generally aren't true. Things like men are naturally more promiscuous than women, right? You hear that all the time. Women use it. I use it sometimes in social engineering to get things that I need. Actually, research has shown that, previous research showed that men had an average of 7 sexual partners and women had an average of 4. Recent research shows that 1 in 4 women have 10 partners, while compared with 1 in 5 men who have done the same. So it's changing. Things are changing. Young women are twice as likely to be unfaithful. And 50% of women cheat on their partners. So, you guys, the reason I put this in here is just to kind of get you thinking about the fact that things are not what we commonly want to think. We want to think women are one way. We want to think men are one way. But they're not. And like I said, there are real biological differences between men and women, and those affect our communication. And once we break down what we think, we can effectively and more effectively communicate with each other. And one of those things we see with STEM research, and that really affects this community. You can see out here in this community right now, there's a ton of men and not a ton of women. There's not even half women here or half men. There's probably not even a quarter of the same amount of women here that there are men. And the reason is not because women are stupid or women are not suited for the sciences. It's just something that we just haven't been encouraged to do. That's changing, just as thoughts of how women are sexually and how men are sexually or how women communicate are changing. As we try to change our communication patterns, we communicate better, we understand each other better, we work together better, we do better. Gender involves sex roles. Here's some cliche things, and some of them are actually true. So I want you to think about which of these could be true, which of these could be effective, and which of these are actually not. Gender is psychological, social, and cultural. Women are better listeners than men. Women are submissive, supportive, and accommodating. Men are more assertive, dominant, aggressive, unemotional. Okay? Gender differences are a result of socialization and acculturation. Everybody got those big words? That basically means that you are taught to believe what you believe. If you live in the United States, you believe one way about women. If you live in the Middle East, you believe one way about women and men. If you live in Europe, Canada, wherever, you believe one way and treat women and men in one way. Men are assertive, tough, strong, and competitive. Women are nurturing, communal, and cooperative. In fact, almost all personality traits and gender roles are overlapping. You will find men that are nurturing, communal, and cooperative. You will find women that are assertive, tough, strong, and competitive. Across all studies that examine gender differences in communication, gender explains only about 5% of communication tendencies. Just 5%. So is one gender better? Now, I was walking around telling everybody what I was going to be talking about. And almost everybody told me what? When I said, is one gender better at social engineering than the other? Women are better. Why?
I didn't say it on camera.
I got that at the end, just so you know. When it comes to social engineering, there is an advantage between genders, but it doesn't mean that one is inherently better than the other, or worse. It just means that we have different tendencies. Learning to maximize and leverage, that's what makes a difference. So I have a hard time standing behind the podium, so I'm going to try. There's two primary differences, and it's just communication. It boils down to basic communication. It's how you receive and send messages. So I could pull 5 women and 5 men out of an audience. If they suck at communication, if they suck at understanding how to receive and send messages, then they're going to all be poor at social engineering. They're all going to be poor at manipulation, interpersonal communication, interpersonal manipulation. They're just not going to do a good job at it. Because if you can't communicate with people, you can't do that job. I don't care how you look. I don't care if she's got a rack. I don't care if he's got a 6-pack. It doesn't matter. If you can't communicate effectively with somebody, you can't do the job. Period. Women tend to be better at understanding body language because women tend to understand detail, look at detail. Men tend to look at big pictures. But men tend to, I'll tell you more about what men tend to be better at in a minute. So, hold on. I pushed the wrong button. Sorry. I found some cute little pictures on the internet, so we'll look at those. Nonverbal communication. It's a big part of social engineering. It's a big part of communication. Can you see how big of a part of communication it is? Even though that says vocal tones, that's not verbal communication. That's rate, pitch, if I get loud, soft, how I talk to you, if I use accents, things like that. Only 7% are the words that come out of my mouth. That's it. The rest is all nonverbal communication. So if you can't effectively use nonverbal communication, if you're always looking at your phone, if you spend all your time with computers, if you don't interact with people, if you don't watch people, if you don't learn people and their movements and their bodies, you don't make eye contact, you don't do those things, the rest just doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what words you use, it doesn't matter because you've missed all the rest. It doesn't matter if you're a guy or a girl, you're going to fail. So here's some things, I did find some cute little things on the internet that said, this is why men are better than women. These are things that men do that women don't do. I thought it was interesting. So it says men look at things through binoculars. And women look at things through a kaleidoscope. I don't even know what does that mean? This is sad that people read these things and think, this is so true. Men remember isolated incidents and facts. I don't think that's, women remember connections and patterns. Men move from problem to solution to action. Women juggle possible solutions and explore all angles. Have y'all seen? I just can't. I know it's harder than you think. Men separate emotionality from rationality. Women take things more personally. Men don't verbalize emotions easily. Women verbalize emotions easily. Now, this was the one that got me because the second one, so many of these are wrong. Men talk more. What men? Women ask more questions. Men interrupt more. Women seek opinion more. Men appear more certain. Women give more praise. Men talk about their achievements more. Women say thank you more. Men claim personal ownership over ideas more. Women apologize more. You shouldn't. Men use opposition and debate more. Not in our house. Women soften criticism more. Not in our house. Men use more direct and indirect speech. Women do downplay their authority and allow themselves to be interrupted more. So there's some things in there, but most of these things are extremely wrong and cliche. And that's the problem, is that we've allowed these things to permeate throughout our society. We believe a lot of this. So many people believe a lot of this. This is fact. There have been 15,000 communication studies done between men and women and on gender and how they communicate between 1997 and 2005, I think is what I picked up this morning. I'm sorry if I can't remember it exactly because it was a long night. That's a lot. That's a lot of studies. And I know some of you don't think that this is science that we do, but it is. And the thing is that what we found is that there are some factual differences in the way men and women communicate, but the fact of it is that you're humans and you're people. And we all tend to communicate a lot alike. I thought this one was funny, so I just threw it up there. You guys agree?
It really upsets me that there's no numbers.
I know. It was just a big circle. I was just like, how many people did they look at? Yeah. I thought it was pretty interesting. I thought it was pretty funny because that is exactly what it was. I didn't crop anything out. This is exactly what it looked like. And this is another one of those just lame what men and women do. So I'm going to get a little more factual now. This is out of those 15, this is what they kind of condensed down from those 15,000 studies that they found that were more what men and women do and how you can leverage these behaviors into social engineering. Women tend to stand closer to each other in conversation, while men reveal less emotion than women through facial expressions. These things are kind of important when you are casing marks, when you're working targets, when you were doing social engineering, when you were doing phishing through phone work, whatever you're trying to do with social engineering, you need to understand how different genders communicate so that you can better work that gender. Now, it's not, like I said, it's not going to work for every gender. It's not going to work for every, not every person, not every female, not every male. And that's why you have to know your target, period. But it is good to know these general things so that you have a starting point. You have a baseline to work from. Women use more eye contact than men. Men use less eye contact. Generally, when you hold eye contact with a man, they tend to think that there's a sexual advance there. So that works in a favor if that's what you're doing for a female, just so you know. Women tend to use more facial expressions and are more expressive. And they want that from a male partner or when they're talking to a male. If a male just is blank staring at them, they think you're not interested in them. And men tend to keep greater distance, proxemic distance for people. When a woman breaks that proxemic barrier with a man, again, they tend to think that that's a sexual advance. And so keep that in mind. Women are more likely to return a smile. Men tend to keep their legs apart. Women tend to smile more. Again, women tend to cross their legs. Men tend to sit with their legs apart, which if you look around, most men, all these guys, some of them are sitting with their legs apart, some are crossing their legs, so it's weird. Women play with their hair when they're trying to get something that they want, or play with their clothing to draw attention to things that they think are more attractive on their bodies. Men tend to use more bigger gestures when they talk. Women are approached by both sexes more than men. So men approach women, women approach women, while men generally just approach each other. Men have negative reactions to crowds. They don't want to be in big crowds. They generally tend to group together. Women group in big groups. Women do not want men to touch them, but men want women to touch them. And women tend to keep their hands on chairs. I don't even know why this was important. I don't know why they studied this. While men don't keep their hands on the back of chairs. I don't know why that was important, but it was in the study. And there was this situation which I thought was interesting. They studied this group of men, 426 men and females, male and females. And they were doing who claimed the armrest more. 284 men claimed the armrest, and only 57 women were able to on an airplane. I think it's interesting because it's about dominating behavior. While women were allowing these men to do this, and women just kind of gave in and let them do it. Sure. Because there's two armrests and they needed them both. Yeah. You hold it and you get the, I'll hold my pee and you get to have both armrests. Okay, and women are better at interpreting nonverbal signals, like I said earlier. They are also better at reading unintentional nonverbal messages, such as deception detection. Although men do send nonverbal messages, they typically do it more subtly than women. Men use less gestures with their hands to express themselves, but women tend to use their eyes more often to confront and give those messages to men instead of using their hands. While men tend to gesture with their hands, shoulders, and feet, women tend to use their head and eyes. And like I said, men, that was the previous one. And part of this is to establish an emotional connection. Women want to establish an emotional connection with men or with anybody, with other women while they're talking to them. Men just tend to want to get their message across and be done and move on. And then proxemics. Proxemics is a big thing with social engineering. If you can break a proxemic barrier, male or female, and that's getting close to somebody and then touching them, then you have really done a lot to get in and move on. We don't tend to do that a lot in society anymore. We tend to stay away from each other and have a big barrier in between each other. We don't tend to make eye contact with each other a lot, and we definitely don't touch each other. It's just not something we tend to do anymore. Yeah. But I'm not talking about a conference. I'm not talking about a conference. I'm talking about what you do every day in your workplace. I'm talking about how you handle it. I'll take just a minute. I'm talking about how you handle everyday situations. I'm not talking about how you handle at a con when you've been drinking and things like that. I'm talking about just everyday things. Somebody at a bar, somebody that you're hanging out with just normally, or a stranger. Or when you're working a mark, or when you're doing social engineering. It's a little bit different of a situation than what you're doing with people that you know every day. So it's establishing rapport with somebody that you don't know. How do you break that ice to move in and to gain that trust initially enough to move forward? Those things are different. You guys can't think about this in a way, well, this is how I act at this con. I know these people. I would already do these things. You're thinking of this in ways that with people that you do not know, people that you may want to get information from, people that you may want to work in different ways for social engineering aspects. That's what we're talking about. And like I said, touching. Men approach it differently. I can walk up, for example, at DerbyCon, I walked up behind Beltface. I don't know how many of you know Beltface, but I walked up behind him and grabbed him from behind and was squeezing his chest, his boobs, okay? Yeah. Yeah. I could do that to just about any guy or girl, or walk up behind them and grab them from behind. That's not something a guy could do to a girl. I can walk up, yeah, not really. He could, but then there'd be cops. Touching is a big thing that you can do to break, and I can generally do it to break a proxemic barrier. I can generally do it to break down a wall and get in, but it's not something that can generally be done from That's a big one that males cannot flip around and do to females. Not nearly as easily. Not to a female they do not know. And then gestures. We talk about gestures. I said, can you think about any gestures and emblems that one sex could be more likely to use than another? I want you to answer this in just a second. But there's things like men punch each other. You know, you're not going to walk up generally and punch a girl. Some men do. But generally, you're not going to walk up and go, girl! You know, big expansive gestures, you don't generally do those with other women. You know, so there's some gestures, some things that men and women, it's just not exchangeable. That's what I'm saying. There's some things that women do with men that men just, you could do them. They could be done, sure. Should you do it? Is it going to work? Is it going to be effective as a social engineering gesture? Probably not. We talk about how men and women should be equal. We should be able to do all these things. Men and women should be able to do everything that the other one can do. Fine, go ahead. Are you going to be as effective as a social engineer? Are you going to be able to do the job that you're supposed to do? No, you're just not. Can you work together as a male-female team? Yeah. Use the best strengths of the guy. Use the best strengths of the girl, and you'll be unstoppable. Play up to what you are the best at. Learn these things and use those as tools, and you will be fantastic as a social engineer. Learn what you are the best at. Take these and figure it out and rock it. Don't use them as weaknesses. Don't think of them that way. Figure out what works for you the best way and own it. And finally, just because I know a lot of you have been thinking this through the whole presentation, what girls have and what we use as the best tool for social engineering. Oh, it's going to do it when I did not do that. Stop it. I thought I'd offer these to you as an offering. And finally, there, guys. They are powerful. But I really like these better. So I want to ask you have any questions? Anybody? I'm going to leave that up there, though, because I think it's pretty. And that's a bit, intercultural communication is difficult. I mean, like in some other countries, for men on men, proxemics, men generally stay really close together. They kiss each other, but then they'll stay 30 feet away from a female. It's just not okay to be that close to a woman. So you do need to know, and you need to research what culture you're going into. And research is a powerful tool, regardless. Whatever you're going into, you need to research your area. You need to research your market. You need to research your company that you're going into to work the target. But definitely if you're going into another culture, or you know that your target's from another country, you need to know those social norms, because you could very easily isolate that person and totally tank it. So yeah, I'm mostly talking about for general American cultural things. Not in how generally men and women are going to react to each other, base reaction. No. Anybody else? And I know it was kind of jumpy. I'm sorry about that. I hope I got in some groove and you got something out of it. And if you have more questions or want to talk after, I'm more than happy to break anything else down for you. Anything else? Thank you so much for coming.